You have probably heard this claim that the phrase fear not appears in the Bible 365 times, one for every day of the year. It's a beautiful idea. Preachers love it. It's all over social media, and it's not true. Count them in any translation, and you'll find the numbers closer to 100, sometimes less, depending on how you count. The 365 claim is a myth, but here's why I'm telling you this. Because what is true about fear not is actually better than the myth. This command, do not fear, is the single most repeated command in all of Scripture. Not be good, not try harder, not even love one another. The thing God says to human beings more than anything else is, do not be afraid. And of all the places this command appears, one verse has become the anchor. The verse people tattoo on their arms, the verse whispered in hospital rooms. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. But here's what almost nobody tells you. This verse contains a Hebrew word, translated dismayed, that describes something so specific, so physical, that when you see it, you will recognize your own anxiety in a 3,000-year-old sentence. And the verse doesn't just say stop it, it gives you the mechanics of how fear actually ends. But first, you need to know where this verse sits, because Isaiah 41 is not a comfort chapter, it's a courtroom. The people hearing this verse were facing the collapse of everything. Isaiah is speaking into the reality of Babylonian exile, Jerusalem destroyed, the temple burned, the people dragged 700 miles from home, and on the horizon, a new conqueror was rising, and the whole ancient world was trembling. And in chapter 41, God does something unexpected. He calls a courtroom into session. He summons the nations. He challenges their idols, the gods everyone was trusting for protection, to stand up and prove themselves, predict something, do something, anything. Silence. And then, into that silence, God turns from the terrified nations to his own terrified people, and the tone completely changes. He stops speaking like a prosecutor, and he starts speaking like a father. But you, Israel, my servant, whom I have chosen, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not cast you off. And then, verse 10, fear not. Here's why that context matters. This is not a greeting card floating in space. This is God speaking to people whose fears were completely rational. The empire really was coming. The exile really happened. God does not say your fears are silly. He says, even here, I am with you. Now let's look at the words. Because the Hebrew in this verse is doing things the English can't show you. The verse contains two commands, and they are not the same. The first, fear not, is al-tishta. That's the general word for fear. Straightforward. But the second, be not dismayed, is al-tishta. And this word is a picture. The root behind it carries the sense of gazing around, looking this way and that, anxiously scanning. The pictures of someone whose eyes will not stop moving, checking the horizon, checking again, looking for the threat, looking for an escape route, looking for help that isn't coming. Do you recognize that? Because that is the most accurate description of anxiety I have ever found. And it was written 26 centuries before psychology had a word for it. Anxiety is not just feeling afraid, it's the scanning. The 3 a.m. ceiling stare, the checking of the phone, the bank account, the news, the symptoms, the eyes that will not rest. And the command, Al-tishta, is literally stop scanning the horizon. But here's the thing about commands like that. You cannot simply decide to stop scanning. Anyone who has ever been told just stop worrying knows it doesn't work. Your eyes keep moving until they find something solid to rest on, which is exactly why God does not stop at the command. Look at the structure of the verse. Every command is followed by a reason, and every reason is God Himself. Fear not. Why? For I am with you. Be not dismayed. Why? For I am your God. The verse doesn't say stop being afraid because the danger isn't real. The danger was real. It says stop scanning because what you're scanning for, presence, help, someone who sees you, is already standing next to you. And then come the three promises, and in Hebrew, they escalate. I will strengthen you. That's inner reinforcement, supplying what you lack. Yes, I will help you. That's God stepping in from the outside, acting on your behalf. And then the third one, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. The word is ta-mak. It means to grasp, to grip, to hold something so it cannot fall. Notice the progression. Strengthen, that's God working in you. Help, that's God working for you. Uphold, that's God's hand physically under you. The promises move closer and closer until the last one is skin to skin. And the hand doing the holding is my righteous right hand. In the ancient world, the right hand was the hand of power, the sword hand, the oath hand, the hand of a king. God is saying the strongest thing I have is what's underneath you. There is one more detail, and it's 3 verses later, where almost nobody reads. Verse 13. God repeats the promise, but He changes one thing. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. Did you catch it? In verse 10, God upholds you with His right hand. In verse 13, He is holding your right hand. Think about the geometry of that. If someone holds your right hand with their right hand, they are facing you, or walking beside you, turned toward you. This is not a God who pushes you from behind, not a God who drags you from ahead. It is the posture of a parent gripping a child's hand in a crowd, turned toward the child, adjusting their pace to the child's steps. And one verse later, God calls His people something shocking. Fear not, you worm Jacob. A worm, small, soft, utterly defenseless. God does not pretend His people are stronger than they are. The promise was never you are strong enough. The promise is what holds you is. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself wanting more of, what the words are actually doing underneath the translation, that's this entire channel. We've done this with the yoke in Matthew 11, with the secret place in Psalm 91, with shalom and hesed. They're all here waiting for you. But let's finish this one. We started with a myth, fear not, 365 times. It isn't true. Here's what's true instead. The most repeated command in the Bible is, do not be afraid, not because fear is forbidden, but because it keeps being necessary. God says it over and over for the same reason a parent says it over and over, because the child keeps needing it, because the night keeps coming back, because the scanning starts again. And every single time, the reason attached to the command is never because nothing bad will happen. It is always because I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Stop scanning the horizon. What you're looking for is already holding your hand.